What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time in Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. We're going to be recapping some of the biggest games from Week 14 of the NFL season. In particular, we're going to talk about the Vikings Lions and Steelers fans. We've seen your comments. We know you want us to talk about Kenny Pickett, and we were planning to today. All right? We can all attest we were planning to talk about Kenneth, but he got hurt. All right. And we don't really feel like there was enough to talk about from today's game for him. So,
yeah, well, we circled that one as like, oh, we'll talk about this game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was the worst one of the day. So
it came down to the end.
Yeah, it came down to the end, but it was
the Ravens defense had some, I don't know, Ravens defense didn't look bad. Roquan had, a couple good plays.
Roquan played amazing. Yeah.
He had a real nice game, but
didn't hurt that Trubisky was staring down. I'll say this about the Steelers game. Trubisky played a hilarious football game today. He was staring guys down. Two of the picks over the middle to the tight end were just because he was like looking directly at him. On the first one, there was like this high-low concept happening where like someone was, I think it was Sims coming across the field below Freiermuth, and Sims was bringing in Roquan Smith in this high-low situation. But Trubisky never looked at that. Like, he was not looking at anything besides Freiermuth. So he wasn't looking at the other side of the formation. He wasn't looking at the other side of the field. So he just gunned it into Freiermuth. And to his surprise, there was actually another player bringing in Roquan Smith from the other side. And then the second one, I don't even know what he was doing. And then the third one was a fuck it Deontay Johnson over there somewhere bald, which was hilariously bad. But he also had some plays where he was getting hit and just throwing it up there anyway that got completed. There was one fade to Deontay where there was pressure up the A-gap. He got smoked and threw one of the best balls of the season. So obviously he didn't play good. He threw 3 picks. But much like when Pickett first came in for Trubisky, the first thing Pickett did is like, I'm going to separate myself and I'm going to create some big plays here, and was like bombing it down the field and threw some picks. The same thing happened to Trubisky where he's like, oh, here's my chance. I'm going to differentiate myself from Pickett, and I'm going to create some explosives. And the same exact same thing happened. He threw a bunch of dumb picks. So Mitch Trubisky played an entertaining game. Was it good? No. Was it fun to watch at times? Yes. And that's what I'll say.
You know what else was fun to watch? It was fun to watch Baker Mayfield show up on Thursday Night Football in prime time, coming off 2 days of practice and just like signal calling like what route to the receivers to run. And they won the game playing like it was the most ridiculous game you could have possibly imagined.
It makes you question certain NFL teams' offensive game plans. Not that I really thought that Baker played he played fine. I mean, all things considered, honestly, he played pretty great. I think coming in with 2 days time is totally ridiculous. And on that last drive, he had some nice throws. I saw somebody tweet out, it's like he's just earned himself a backup gig for another 5 years. It's possible. Baker is a type of guy where he can. I mean, he looked like out of the league bad on the Panthers. Like, couldn't get himself to just throw the ball when he needed to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Rams for giving him easy stuff to do and making it work towards the end.
Oh my God, I got cooked after that game because it really reminded me of the Josh Freeman situation from 2013, where Josh Freeman was a bust in Tampa. Tampa eventually cut him after no one wanted to trade for him. The Vikings signed him, and he was on the Vikings for like maybe a week and a half. And then they put him in a primetime game, and he had to throw like 50 passes, and he would just look so out of his depth. Right. It was hilarious. Mm-hmm. My thought is like, I haven't seen a situation like that. Right. This is the same situation. So I made a video. I was like, what can we expect from Baker tonight? Well, look no further than Josh Freeman, who was like not a super talented NFL quarterback, a first round bust thrown in there, and he played terrible. You can expect that tonight from Baker Mayfield, which I maintain is not an unreasonable, logical conclusion to come to.
No.
Bad quarterback off of 1 day of practice. Maybe he will be bad. He will probably be bad. But man, I haven't gotten cooked like that in a long time. But here's my thing. if Baker doesn't know the playbook, there's nothing for him to mess up. He doesn't know. It is.
Well,
can't misread a book he doesn't know.
Yeah, right. It doesn't know.
It also
he's out there on pure vibes.
Doesn't hurt that he's playing like one of the worst pass defenses, worst secondaries in the NFL.
Still, I mean, he's playing on a really terrible supporting cast with a bad offensive line.
True,
and no Cooper Kupp. Granted, Van Jefferson had the game-winning catch. I thought it was quite impressive. That's my guy. But I think the real big surprising thing to me is like you saw with the Panthers how much he struggled confidence-wise. That's what's really killed him from when he was with the Browns in 2020 to now. It's like part of it's the scheme, but part of it's just like, dude, you got to throw the ball and be a little bit more calm.
Yeah.
And then you figure he's going to a totally new situation, worst possible scenario, and he at least looks confident in the simple stuff that he's doing. I thought it was pretty impressive.
I think with leaving the Browns, that had to have been like a huge like knock to his confidence. And then to go to the Panthers and it's like, oh, are they going to start Matt Corral over him? Or are they going to start Sam Darnold? And it's like for him to, be in all these quarterback battles and to just keep getting, knocked down, to then get picked up by the Rams is like, you're playing. It's like, hey guy, you're going to have to play Thursday. Like, be ready. Like,
he had nothing to lose, and he had nothing to lose. And to me, like his biggest problem is his mechanics and his sequencing. Like his feet will be all over the place. His like release looks horrific. It looked horrific on the Panthers and the Browns last season. So I thought in this game, at least his mechanic, I didn't notice any plays where like, oh my God, his mechanics were a total mess there. Look, I don't know. We'll see with Baker. I mean, he was extremely talented at Oklahoma. He was the first overall pick for a reason. He played well in 2020 in a pretty easy situation, but he's capable of keeping things on the rails. We've seen it, but we'll have to see a little bit more than that first game. But man, the Raiders, it looked like they were starting to string some good stuff together. Like Josh Jacobs was going scorched earth mode these last couple of weeks. Davante Adams, like obviously he's incredible. They started to string some wins together, and then I mean they're up what was it 16-3 with like
16
a couple minutes left. I saw some ridiculous stat. Derek Carr threw for like 11 yards in the second half. They kept running. They kept kind of pounding their heads against the wall with these runs. The Rams were doing a great job bottling it up all game. You saw Davante Adams like just going absolutely nuts in the first half with some of the greatest catches you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah.
And they just kind of got away from it. They were like, we're going to keep running the football no matter what. We're going to keep control of the football because we don't think the offense can do anything, which is like a valid assumption with Baker. But I mean, it just kept not working. I mean, Josh Jacobs with a broken pinky probably had, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but he probably had close to 30 carries in that game. And it's like they could have probably kept feeding Adams or the wide receivers a little bit more instead of just pounding their head against the wall, hoping to just run as much time off the clock as possible for Baker. But it just wasn't working, and they never got away from it because they thought they could get away with it. But Baker was feeling dangerous. I don't understand you, Blaiden.
Yeah.
Do you like Baker? You like Baker. You're a Baker fan.
I'm not like I don't hate Baker Mayfield.
Well, you say this because I've never gotten a read, but after the touchdown, you posted a picture of you in a Baker jersey and said "Thank you" at Baker Mayfield. So, like, how much do you really like this guy? Because I can never get a read on it.
I mean, when he was playing bad for the Browns, obviously I wasn't like, no, it's okay. It's like, no, I'm a fan of the Browns, and if the Browns are playing bad, and I can tell that that you are a main catalyst for that reason, I'm not going to be happy, right? But like, I'm not going to be, if he's going to go somewhere else and succeed, like by all means, dog. Like if he wins, he goes on a streak of winning, he has some good games, I'm going to be happy for the guy. I bought his jersey, I'm going to wear it. Like,
fair enough. But yeah,
no, I could. A lot of people were like, "Dog, don't you like hate Baker?" I'm like, "Oh."
In the past couple weeks, the Raiders have lost a game to Jeff Saturday, who was hired off the literal, never coached before, hired off the ESPN show, whatever show he was on, I don't know. And now they've lost to a quarterback with literally one day of practice. It's just like
they have 7 single score losses. 7. That's nuts.
Yeah, they've blown like a 3-possession lead now, I think 4 times. So
just got to stop shooting himself. I don't know what else to say.
There's totally a universe where they don't do this. They aren't like choking away all these big games, and they're a relatively serious team, but they're addicted to unacceptable losses right now.
Yeah.
The Carr pick where at the end of the first half where he stepped up and like tripped over his lineman's foot and like threw it as he was falling forward into triple coverage. It's just like, just don't do that and you win this game. It's just little things. It's little things. And Carr before threw like one of the best passes of the whole year to Devontae Adams on that drive up this left sideline. But then he follows that up and it's like, that's the thing with Carr, man.
It's like literally tripping over your own feet.
To be an elite quarterback like the Mahomeses of the world or Rodgers or Brady these past couple years, like they maybe have 1 bad game a year, 2, maybe. Like Mahomes just doesn't have bad games. Right. Carr has like he's very talented, like he's good, he can win you games. There's some stat where he's had more wins with his team than like almost any other quarterback in the league right now. Like he's not bad, but he's just prone to some bad games more than other guys are, and that's the difference. It's not that his high end stuff there's nothing that he necessarily just cannot do, but he's just prone to brain farts and bad moments, and you saw that in this one, and it was a bad time when they started to string
that Kirk Cousins together. Gene, man. That Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff gene. It's crazy. Contagious. I don't know what it is, but the Raiders are an interesting team, and I've been trying to gauge Raiders fans on their kind of stance on Josh McDaniels, because that's going to be the big question mark is where do you go from here with him?
You keep him.
A lot of Raiders fans seem to hate him. Raiders fans seem to hate him.
Well, I don't know if he's going to be a successful head coach. I don't know but he is a good offensive mind, and I thought that his play calling against the Seahawks was quite good. I thought his play calling last week against the Chargers was pretty good. Like he can call some good games. He's capable of it. But like just keeping everything on the rails seems to be the problem. It was the problem in Denver. Like he rubbed tons of people the wrong way, and even though the results weren't necessarily horrible with him, they let him go after a year and a half. And again, here it's like some of it just doesn't seem smooth from a communication standpoint, and maybe he's just not the best. Like he's a great offensive mind. He can call some amazing plays, but it is the mindset of the team in the right place. And that's what it comes down to with him. And I think they're going to give him another year to get that mindset. That there are positives to take away from this year. There are times to say we were this close. So I think they'll keep him, but I don't know if I'd bet on him. Maybe he makes it through 2023, but if he's there in 2024, I think it would surprise me based on what I've seen from a head coach of him. But I think they're going to bring him back. But I get why Raiders fans don't like him that much. Yeah. I probably wouldn't have hired him.
That's the only thing I can think of like when you're up 3 possessions in so many games that and you end up losing them. Like that to me comes down to like a coaching thing. I don't know. But I think it's McDaniels is on the chopping block potentially, and then obviously their secondary needs to be improved. But they're not that far off. They're really not.
Yeah, we'll see with them. We'll see.
Now, I live in Ohio, but I love watching De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento. You all know that. And it can be a real big pain for me because I don't always get to watch their games because they're not always in my area. But this season, I discovered an amazing trick that lets me watch every single NBA game live for a fraction of the normal cost. It's called ExpressVPN, and here's how it works. So the NBA offers the NBA League Pass, which lets you stream games online. But if you live in the US or Canada, it doesn't let you watch all of them, and some games are blacked out. So what do? Fire up ExpressVPN and use it to change your location to a different country. You then buy and use NBA League Pass from there, and boom, no more blackouts. And depending on the country, NBA League Pass could cost less than $15 for the whole year. ExpressVPN works on your computer, phone, router, and even consoles like Fire TVs, so you can watch all the games from any device. So even when I'm not watching NBA, I use ExpressVPN all the time for stuff like my Netflix or Disney Plus to access thousands of extra shows that are only on other countries' libraries. You can enjoy all 1,230 games of the NBA season in high definition with the world's most trusted VPN, ExpressVPN. And today, use the special link and get 3 months free at expressvpn.com/stayhot. Then you can use ExpressVPN to sign up for NBA League Pass at a huge discount. Again, that is expressvpn.com/stayhot for 3 months free with a 1-year package. expressvpn.com/stayhot.
Vikings Lions.
Vikings Lions, man.
I thought my big takeaway from this game is like, ooh, the Vikings can now run the football. You're going up against a front seven that is not particularly talented. We've talked about this all the time. And granted, I thought they had a lot of nice plays. They were really aggressive attacking in.
I thought Cousins played fantastic. I thought he played amazing. But you're right, Matt. Their rushing EPA per play was negative 0.63, which is horrible. Their success rate was 12%.
Yeah, show me that 12%, man. Where are they? Because it was it was a miserable game, and I mean, and there were some good plays by Detroit. I mean, Hutchinson had that one tackle for loss where they were talking about him standing up more, and he just totally ghosted the other guy and then got back there. And I think Okuda had one where he rushed in, and the linebackers being super aggressive coming and attacking in, which I think their linebackers, for the most part, what I've seen, are really, really not that great. But today they were super aggressive. And I mean, overall, the Lions were super aggressive today. But I think you look at that Vikings team, it's like the offense, at least, that you look at it and you're like Cousins and Jefferson and Hawkinson and Thielen's a name, and it's like, well, that and Cook, it's like, wow, that's a lot of names. But then overall, it's like, well, the offensive line stinks. You can't really run the ball. Hawkinson's good. Jefferson is like absolutely everything. It's not as good as it looks if you glance at it on paper,
Yeah, for sure. And the Lions defense has picked it up a bit in these past couple of weeks, and I do think their front seven, and they've invested a lot in the defensive tackle position. Yeah. And I think guys like Elim McNeil, I can't really remember how to pronounce his first name. He's gotten a lot better recently. I think Hutchinson has improved as the years has gone on. James Houston has kind of emerged for them. So their front four is better than it was for sure, and they're very aggressive. But my takeaway on the Lions defense today is was the Vikings interior of their offensive line, and they're injured. Darrisaw's not in there. I saw some names that I had never seen before on that Vikings offensive line.
You are a Madden created player.
It was like Schlittman or something. I don't even know. But there was a play where right before the end of the first half, they ran a pop pass. So what was supposed to be a pop pass to Dalvin Cook. Yeah. And in that play, a starter for them, Ed Ingram, got completely eviscerated and thrown to the ground by Isaiah Buggs. And Isaiah Buggs blew the thing up. And it's like, bro, your starter is getting killed by Isaiah Buggs. And that play, I mean, was huge in that game. It was absolutely prevented those pop passes. If you can get up and throw them, I swear to God, they have a 100% success rate because there's always someone open behind the defense. Yeah. So, I mean, Ed Ingram has been awful for them, and they're injured. And I think Dalvin Cook is not what he used to be. I don't think he's what he used to be. He had a nice juke move in space to score a touchdown, but outside of that, it was really nothing. I mean, 12% is horrible. The Lions couldn't run the football today, and they were at 30% success rate, and that was really bad. 12 is an unconscionable, is a horribly low number. We'll just say that. And then on the back end, you're right, Matt, they play aggressive. Like the linebackers are flying downhill, and they play a lot of press coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Jefferson, I think the stat from Next Gen was that they had Justin Jefferson had 190 yards versus press coverage today.
He had 220 yards today, and they lost anyway. Dude, it's so stupid. It's like, I don't want to give the take. It's like, if they didn't have their best player, what would they do? But like, what would they do, man? He's probably offensive player of the year for me right now.
He's up there. It was 190 of his yards were against press coverage, and they've got some guys who can play press coverage. Akuda can. He's a little inconsistent with it, but he's capable of some good games in press coverage, like we saw the last time they played the Vikings, right? But he was in and out of the lineup today with an injury, and then you got Jerry Jacobs, who's pretty good with it. He had an amazing pass breakup on Adam Thielen. But when they were showing here's Justin Jefferson's day today, and they were flashing back to all his catches, he's on Hughes a lot of the time. He's on Oruwariye a lot of the time. So the Vikings can get matchup. It's not good across the board, right? And if you're playing press coverage across the board, all of your guys need to be good at it because their linebackers aren't. And TJ Hawkinson had plenty of receptions today and one more that he probably could have had that he blatantly dropped. So they just don't have guys across the board who can play the way they want to. Once they have that, I love the way they play defense. I think it's so much fun to watch. It's so much more fun to watch a defense that just lines up and is aggressive and plays man coverage across the board than it is to watch like a zone heavy Fangio team. To me, like no disrespect to the zone heavy Fangio teams, but I respect defenses that just line up and play man a little bit more. Not that there's a right way to do things. It's my preferred style when I'm watching things. And they're just a couple secondary pieces away, I fear, with Detroit, because the front seven's coming along a little bit. They could use a better coverage linebacker. And who
had that good pass breakup on Hawkinson on that third down?
I think it was Board.
Yeah, it was Chris Board. That was, I'm not saying that I disagree, but I particularly remember that play from today.
There were some good moments.
Impressive.
And even when so they would get, I think Cousins had like 5 incompletions today or something ridiculous. The ball did not hit the ground much. But when he did complete a pass, there wasn't much after the catch. Guys were kind of flying downhill. Even when Jefferson was making these huge catches, you can see guys on the tackle trying to rip the ball out. So they're swarming, they're physical, they're aggressive, and they don't quite have the players, but I like the mindset they all play with. And even though Jefferson torched them today, I was relatively impressed with I was happy to see them, the way they played defense. I was happy to see them compete. They were playing super hard, super physical, and it showed up in the run game. In the past game, they were playing super physical, but you can have Hughes playing super physical on Justin Jefferson, and that's bad. So
they
they
don't have the corner to go up against Justin Jefferson, and really, who does? So I don't know if I blame them all that much for that. They won.
They did win. Or go ahead, Matt.
Oh no, I saw you. I was kind
of going to change the subject too. I was just going to say they're on 5 of their last 6. The Lions have won, and the remaining schedule is Jets, Panthers, Bears, Packers. Who's to say this team can't win out? Who's to say
Green Bay Packers? Rodgers.
Who's to say a 10-7 Lions team isn't in the playoffs?
Hey, they're only a game out of it right now, and it's I don't think the Giants are going to make up any ground the way they've been looking recently. I saw a tweet the other day about the Lions offense and asking the question, like, should they take a quarterback? Is Jared Goff the guy? I don't know if you guys have any opinions on that. To me, when I hear people ask that question, what flashes in my mind is at the end of the Bills game, that missed throw on that go route, the blitz where he didn't throw to the high.
He hit basically that same throw today. It was on the other side of the field, but it was long ball to DJ Chark. Goff has this sinusoidal type of play.
We've seen this. We already know. The answer is
this goes.
You can be pretty good. You can improve the rest of the team and you'll improve next year. And then you can improve the rest of the team and you might improve the year after that. And you could go win a playoff game. Eventually you will be like, Goff, we can't, it's really hard to go all the way with him. Take that how you will. If you're saying there's just not a guy here, I guess keep him. But I think eventually you'll have to make a move.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the Lions offense here, I want to talk a bit about the Vikings defense because I don't think the Vikings are a contender. They weren't even favored in this. They're 10-2. They weren't favored in this game, and the Lions crushed them. So I don't think there's these serious contenders. And I think part of the reason, and the Chark play reminds me of this, their corners just aren't really athletic enough to me. Like, there's a couple issues. Their corners are not really athletic enough to me. Cam Dantzler, he runs like a 4.6. Patrick Peterson, I don't know what he runs at this point, but he's old.
It cannot be good. It cannot be good.
On the Chark play, they have a backup safety in. Well, there was the Jamison Williams touchdown.
Oh my
where
God!
I don't know what
he caught that football like a punt, man. It's It was gross.
Cam Bynum just didn't. He was the cover 3 guy. He was playing single high, or not single high because it's cover 3. But he's supposed to be, backpedaling, taking away a big post route like that. But he decided to jump the dig instead, and there's no one on that post. So, like, what was that? And then there's Dantzler, who's just too slow. Like, he has some good moments. He does some things well, but he's slow. And Chark just outran him, basically. And on the touchdown, basically the game-winning touchdown to Justin Jackson, they didn't do a really good job containing the edge. And you have it's Dantzler's responsibility to clean up anything that comes there. He's coming down from his corner spot, but he's going towards the middle of the field, but then he has to flip his hips and run to the sideline, and he just looks so slow doing it, and he gets outran. So they just have these slow corners that give up, and without Harrison Smith, the safety play, like Lewis Seen is also hurt, so you've got 2 kind of backup safeties in there, guys that at the beginning of the season you may not like to see back there. So I like I said, I thought they played pretty well against the run. Dexter Lawrence just killed the right guard a couple times for Detroit, who was also a backup. There's backups all over the place at this point in the season, but like I just don't trust their secondary at this point. They're not super athletic. They don't play a brand of defense. They play a very safe brand of defense, like very too high. Don't let any big plays happen. But their outside corners are slow enough to the point where those big plays can still happen because guys will just run by them like Chark did today, or Garrett Wilson birding, Patrick Peterson on the double move last week, or whatever it is. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. I think like their offensive line and their secondary just isn't. You can't have weaknesses and win a Super Bowl in those areas. So, yeah.
I have a question for you guys about the Lions' future. Okay. Dan Campbell is one of the most aggressive coaches in the NFL. He's always doing something, right? Whether it's the fake punt that he had today, or I don't know if I'd consider it a trick play, but Penei Sewell, get that first down.
That's just fun.
There was another play today where Jamal Williams was lined up in a 3-point stance in the fullback spot, and they had a handoff to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jamal Williams flew off the ball so fast because he lined up like in a edge rusher on this play, and he flew off the ball, and he was trying to block Zadarius Smith, but he went too fast and he just overran him. It was a fun play design. They ran pin pull, but I was like, what is Jamal Williams in the backfield in a 3-point stance? He just flies forward.
Looked like he never been there before.
He was like he like fell flat on his face, but Amon-Ra St. Brown still outran Zadarius Smith, who was unblocked.
Let the sun god cook,
man. And picked up a first down. But they do. You're right, Matt. That was just another. As we're talking Lions doing fun shit, I wanted to bring that play up.
So they're really aggressive, and I think one of the reasons why people like this so much is because the Lions, they're fighting for the playoffs right now, but they've been under Dan Campbell so far. They've been kind of playing on like house money. They've got like, if it's like go be aggressive, and if they lose, it's like this team is still in the middle of a rebuild. Everybody at the moment loves it. Do you think in a couple of years, if the Lions become like a team that is expected to compete for the division, a team that is like 11 wins is expected, do you think that aggressiveness people are maybe going to start turning on a little bit if, some of those plays stop working out so much? Or do you think Campbell will like draw back a little bit when they become not such an underdog team?
They shouldn't. I don't think they should. Maybe they will. It depends on the results, right? When it works, everyone loves you. When it doesn't, it doesn't. So everyone will love it. If no matter how good they are, everybody will love it when it works. But I mean, I just like the aggressiveness. I think that it's well, let's just go do this thing. I know a lot of old school head coaches like who want to establish the run and they want to, just ground and pound and all that kind of stuff. They also are the ones who punt and play the field position games. Like I appreciate him being a rah guy and also making the connection. It's like, hey, maybe the more physical and like aggressive and football guy thing to do is just go for it all the time.
Right, it is.
So I think that it's his identity, and I think if his identity brings him to the point where the team is all of a sudden, good and contending, I like to think that he'll keep it up. I like to think that he should.
My point being that right now, when those trick plays don't work out, the negative reaction around it is not nearly as strong because the team is like the underdog and they're not expected to win. But if that team becomes the favorites and they're still running these like a lot of trick plays and then they don't start to work out, is the mindset going to change to be like, you don't need to be doing that stuff. You should be able to just go out and beat them more straight up, I guess is maybe the way to put it. And you think, like, I could see it like costing one big moment. I think there's a possibility that narrative changes if the Lions get to that level and if they start to not convert some of them.
I think it'll happen. I hope most are smarter. There's always going to be the conversation on First Take or Undisputed or whoever, where they're just like, criticizing whatever doesn't work. But I hope that people understand that it's their identity and they should just stick by it, win or lose. And people give Staley a bunch of shit for it, right? They hate Staley for it.
It just never works out for the Chargers, man.
I love the stat that about Staley and going for it, like their EPA on fourth down situations, like going for it on non-primetime games versus primetime games. And it just works so well in non-primetime games. And then when everybody's watching, it just totally fell apart. Like, I honestly like that they do that. I'm always for the aggressiveness. Maybe not always, but most of the time I'm for the aggressiveness, and I would be for it. I think they should keep it up no matter how good the team is. And you would think it would work even better when they have better players, right? You would think that's...
You would, right? You would think, but...
If there's this world where they're expected to win the division and they're super talented, you would think like, oh, they should go for it on fourth down more because it just is more likely to work.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe as the defense gets better, they'll start trusting the defense and punting it away too. So I don't know what'll happen. I'd like to think they'll keep it up though.
They should keep it up. You know what else we need to keep up? The Jalen Hurts MVP narratives.
Keep up.
Well,
when did we start it in the first place?
I started it.
His stats are, dude. It's just going to be. I'm rooting for this to happen because it'd be such a legendary take, man. You had it dead to rights. His mom commenting on the video, hyping you up, man.
Can I shake his mom's hand, Pamela? Can I shake your hand? Like, please. Can I give you a hug?
Yeah, that is true. I mean, that is true. Yeah.
Here's the thing about the Hurts MVP campaign. He is playing incredibly good. And while he's on a good team, when you see a good throw, it's a good throw. I'm sorry. Right?
Yeah, right.
His running is so valuable to the team as well. It's something that very few players have. He has it. And while, yes, also the offensive line is a big deal, so is that. And ultimately, I think that if we get down to it, and the numbers they look for at quarterback, right? Like they did when, last year, Brady versus Rodgers. If that number comparison comes in and Hurts is looking like he's got the better spread of numbers, I think he wins it. And he's on the best team. Could. I think he wins.
I mean, if they're 15 or 16-1, like
it's going to be hard
definitely could see it.
Argue against it.
I can't believe I predicted them to go 14-3, and I'm going to end up being too low. Jesus Christ! Look, my take on the Hurts thing is, as long as there's an offense better than the Eagles, if it's the Bills or the Chiefs, one of those quarterbacks should win. That's my take, because the Bills, they don't have the offensive line the Eagles do. The Eagles have the best offensive line. The Eagles have an amazing tight end, Dallas Goedert. They have an elite tier 1 wide receiver, and they have a great wide receiver too. They have a very well-designed rushing game. Miles Sanders is playing incredible football this season. There's going to be multiple Pro Bowlers from this offense. Like Lane Johnson probably should be, Kelsey, Hurts, and AJ Brown all probably should be. And you could probably make an argument for maybe even guys like Miles Sanders and guys like, I don't know if there's any more, but there's multiple Pro Bowls on that Pro Bowlers.
There might be there's probably multiple All Pros on this offense.
Right. And with Buffalo, like it's no one that good on the offensive line. You've got Diggs, and that's it in the wide receiving core in terms of like really above average players. And the running game is all Allen. So if we get to the end of this thing, and I know going into this week, the Bills offense was like a little bit better than the Eagles offense. If we're going into this thing, Allen is more valuable to his team than Jalen Hurts. Yes. Same with Mahomes. The offensive line is not as good as the Eagles offensive line. I would say the weapons are, because Kelsey is a big shifter in these things. Like Kelsey's amazing. He's like a top 10 player overall. So the weapons, like maybe you could say that's a wash, but also the Chiefs' running game is nothing like the Eagles. Like he doesn't have that to lean on, even if. So to me, if the Eagles don't end with the number one offense, Mahomes or Allen is more valuable to their respective teams, or maybe Cincinnati with Burrow if they make a huge run at the end of the season. But I mean, they put up 49 points today, right? It's no guarantee that if the Eagles end with the number one offense and Hurts is he's playing like flawless football right now. I think that it's not his fault that the supporting cast is that good, right? If he led the number one offense, like there's Gardner Minshew's not doing that, right? So I think that's kind of what I've got in my head right now is like, they're pretty close to the number one off. They're not that far behind the Chiefs, I think, in a lot of different metrics. So if they continue to like set the world on fire these past couple weeks, and they end number one, I would definitely give it to Hurts. But if he's not number one, I think the quarterbacks on some of the teams ahead of them are more valuable considering the supporting cast. That's kind of my logic in my head with the MVP race. I don't know if any of us disagree with that, or Hurts is the MVP right here, right now over Mahomes.
I don't really disagree with that. Right now, the Eagles have the second scoring offense and third in yards. They're number one in avoiding turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the other thing to consider is like the Chiefs and Bills turn the ball over more. And how much you could say that. How much do you consider that in the MVP race?
I think the ends justify the means. If you're turning the ball over more, but you have a better offense, like I value the better. Like the difference between a turnover and a punt is field position. So I can deal with some turnovers.
Yeah.
If
the Eagles don't really do the Eagles punt ever. So
no, but yeah, that's kind of where I don't really. There's more than one way to what's this phrasing? More to skin a. What's the phrasing on that phrase? Is it skin a horse?
Is it skin a horse?
I don't remember. I think it's skin a horse.
I don't think it's skin a cat.
Do people skin horses?
I want to say that's it, but
I don't know. There's more than one way to do it. There's the Brett Favre way, where it's like you turn the ball over a lot, but you also create a ton of big plays. And at the end of the day, the offense is great. That's the route that Josh Allen is going down. And then there's like the Rodgers way, where you never turn the football over at all, but maybe there's a couple more punts involved. And that's kind of the Eagles way right now. There's more. Yeah. I don't care how you get it done. If you have the top offense, you have the top offense.
Right.
And I don't know where everybody ranks this week. But I know going into this week, it went KC was number one in yards and points per drive. Buffalo was number two in yards and points picked up per drive. And I think Philly was like fourth or third. And I think Cincinnati was up there too. So that's my thoughts on it. About turnovers. But I could definitely see say, well, Allen cost his team games with some turnovers. But my counter would be the only reason that they could have won that game is all 100% Allen, because he does absolutely everything.
Right. But I mean, Jalen Hurts does a lot for this team. And, Matt,
don't.
Yeah, I know you're not taking anything away. I know. And Matt, you said you see a good pass. It's a good pass. Jalen Hurts has been basically perfect on any go route this year.
He's really
any downfield shot has been. He was dead last year in downfield accuracy, and he went from dead last to literally perfect.
I'm telling you, I think the big thing with scouting quarterbacks can they get better? Have they improved over their college career? Because that was true for Hurts.
He
has gotten so much better, man. He's awesome. I love him. And I'll say this too. It's like, his team's really great. Well, who were the two guys in the MVP conversation last year? Aaron Rodgers, who was on a pretty great team, a pretty good offensive line and a great running game, and Devontae Adams, and Tom Brady, who was on a team with an amazing offensive line and great receivers all around. So,
I think my takeaway from that is Josh Allen for like 3 years now should have gotten more credit in the MVP race than he has.
He plays it's hard to win MVP
because he's the leading rusher basically on his. He is the leading rusher on his team. He does everything on the ground and everything through the airs for the Bills. Like every year he seems to come up for the past 3 years since 2020. He's like, well, he's second or third because he doesn't have the best numbers. But it's like, I don't know if there's a player like letter
who could
of the
have
law,
the best numbers.
This is why
more valuable
Lamar's
than what. And Lamar.
This is why Lamar's unanimous MVP is so fucking impressive. How in the world did he manage to do what he did?
I know a guy who won MVP with Ted Ginn as his number one receiver. So
Cam Newton too. Done. Yeah, I mean both of those guys. They had
it's definitely
super
possible.
Impressive MVPs.
And like with Cam, it always drives me so nuts when people are like, "Well, Carson Palmer had more DVOA." Shut the hell up. Please.
Carson Palmer. I'm sorry, I'm not giving Carson Palmer the MVP
over Cam that year. But it's I think a lot of the numbers will lean Hurts' way, and I think I really think Hurts has an extremely good chance of winning, and I think Allen has an extremely low chance of winning because I think voters look at numbers more than using kind of context of like, well, what did their teams look like? I don't actually is for the MVP being called most valuable player.
Yeah.
People don't really look at value all that much. It's just like quarterback with the best numbers. But Hurts is also in that conversation because they couldn't do so much of what they do in the running game with the zone reads and all that with Minshew. So like, he's super valuable too. But
I would be glad if Hurts got it, but it's also hard to argue. It's like, if you put Jalen Hurts on the Bills and Josh Allen on the Eagles,
it's like,
what would we be talking about? I don't think Hurts
but Jalen Hurts would still. I mean, Jalen Hurts would still be running the ball just as much, if not more.
I think if you put like Mahomes on the Eagles, I don't think the Eagles would punt. I mean, it could get.
They should make that trade.
I think we'll see. I don't want to like people paint me as a Hurts hater because I don't think he should win MVP and he has this great record and all that. But I think he's probably like third or maybe you put Burrow above him, but I might even put him above Burrow. It's like I probably put him like third on the ladder right now.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's like hatred.
I mean to go from a guy that people were debating about whether or not Minshew should start over him to being in the MVP conversation, I don't think he's not asking for approval at this point, I can assure you. All right, I think it's high time we talk about the game of the week. Let me emphasize to all of you listening just how dedicated we were to talking about this game. This was a Sunday night game. We normally record games like before the Sunday night game so that we can like get a full night's rest on Sunday. We recorded the first half of the episode after the 1:00 games, took a break, and then recorded the rest after this Sunday night game has happened between the Dolphins and the Chargers. But it was well worth it. We got an amazing game, and we got to see Justin Herbert silence the doubters, silence the haters, as he had probably his best game of the season by a pretty
first
wide
good performance
margin.
On prime time. That's I'm pretty sure.
Good Lord.
No.
It was actually his 7th good performance, as he has 7 wins and 6 losses at this point. So he's had 7 good games.
Those are the only
and
games
6
that count.
Bad games. Yeah.
I mean Herbert did all the stuff he was supposed to. I guess more of the story is Tua. They had a total disaster game. I thought the Chargers game plan, which was kind of like, We're not going to be too worried about the run and have everybody, kind of play back a little bit and really shut down Tua and Waddle to a decent amount, as much as they could. I mean, Tua had 2 super long scores, but that's shutting him down, some would say, barring the stupid fumble.
What was the second super long score?
Oh, the first was the fumble. That was...
Yeah.
He directed traffic, though. He pointed Tariq in the right direction.
He pointed. That's all that matters.
Did I say Tua? I meant Tyreek.
Yeah.
My fault.
I figured you meant Tyreek. But no, it was crazy. Like the amount of physicality that the Chargers were gonna had with Tyreek. Now you got me saying it, Matt. They had with Tyreek all night long was wild. And the fact that they only got called once for like illegal contact, to me is a little bit questionable.
There's a little bit of like wiggle room with pass interference, and they did a great job of like, where there's some times where it's like technically they made contact before, like yes, but I think what I've always thought is like you see Richard Sherman do it, Sauce Gardner does it a lot too,
right?
Where it's like playing more physical and like taking that risk and making them throw the flag. More times than not works out. That's more times.
It's the only time that Kelce. It's the only reason Kelce ever has bad performances is they're like, we're going to beat the shit out of this guy, and the refs know that they can't call it on every play, otherwise it'll be unwatchable. Like,
right, and Kelce's like 6'6", 6'5". Like, what are you going to do? It's like,
it's
bro,
the LeBron effect. Almost,
you're big.
He's too
like,
big.
It's just, right. It's like with Josh Allen. It's like to sack Josh Allen, you have to swing him down, so you can't call roughing the passer because that's how you have to. He's too big. Or
Fields or Cam, but yeah, it was definitely a physical game plan. But the Dolphins need more answers than what they've got. They've have the play action and all the motion up front, and then it draws the linebackers up, and the safeties have to respect the speed of their wide receivers, so they go way back. And for the beginning parts of this season, there were large swaths over the middle of the field to throw to. Now defenses are just like, we're going to fuck the play action. Linebackers, you drop back. Safeties, one of you guys is going to get tons of depth, but one of you is just going to come down and stay in the middle of the field. Those intermediate dig routes, they're not there. And what's your answer? How will you respond to Tua? And the right ways to respond are down the sideline, right? Down the sideline. There's going to be spots. You've got the fastest wide receivers in the game. Yeah. Take those shots vertically down the sideline. Tua doesn't really hit those. Tua does not really hit go routes down the sideline. Those deep and intermediate things to the outside the numbers. There's a ton of intermediate stuff in between the numbers, not so much outside the numbers. And that's kind of where the arm strength comes in. Or you can say, okay, if Tua is not playing well, the wide receivers aren't getting separation, run the fucking ball. Run the fucking ball. The linebackers don't care about you running the ball.
Jeff Wilson's hurt.
They ran the football. I mean, they've still got Raheem Mostert, right? They've still got him. And they were seemingly like ripping off decent runs every time they handed it off. And Tua scrambling was also an effective option because the linebackers are playing way back. So McDaniel, you got to switch it up a little bit. I mean, Tua wasn't hitting. There was the one deep shot to Tyreek Hill where Michael Davis fell down. But outside of that, it was...
That was a great pass.
It was a great
because
pass.
Michael Davis fell down.
Michael got beat. Michael Davis got beat at the line, and then Tua just ripped it. Like it was just like as soon as
it was a great pass. If Michael Davis is not stopping that, man,
it was.
I thought Michael Davis had a chance to make a play on that football before he fell. I think Michael Davis had a chance to make a play. I don't know though. Well, I guess we'll never know.
Go back and look, but I disagree.
guess we'll never
it was
know.
a money ball, and I think the reason why Davis fell is because he was trying so hard to get back. Like he had to be in such a good position, and he wasn't.
Or maybe, but good throw or not, whatever. Sure, let's chart that as a good throw for Tua. That was the only one, right? There are multiple other throws that landed yards out of bounds or were nowhere close to the wide receiver.
He had that one that was real short over the middle that easily could have been intercepted.
Yeah, there was one where Tyreek Hill didn't get his head around and looked at the ball, and it's tough because when the wide receiver doesn't track the football, of course it's going to look inaccurate. But I kind of thought that one may have been it's tough to tell if that was a good ball or not. It's tough.
And I think a lot of this is a credit to the Chargers defense, right? The one thing that we know that Tua is great at, he's great at anticipating, right? When those routes break, he's letting the ball rip. The one great throw that he anticipated, right? As soon as he saw that Tyreek was right. What is it? When you're even, you're leaving. Right. As soon as he saw those guys were neck and neck, he was like, all right, I got the fastest receiver. Like, let's just let it rip. And I know it's a touchdown. But they were taking that away in every other respect.
Even in the 49ers game, Tua had guys open that he just missed, right? There were guys that were wide open that were missed or it was dropped. In this game, and all the credit to the world to a banged up Chargers secondary, like they had a game plan, but the players still got to play. It's not X's and O's, it's Jimmy's and Joe's, right? Asante Samuel Jr. Every coach says that. As you always say. I mean, that's a very common coach.
I've never heard that before.
You've never heard that? I've heard that a million times watching clinics. But Asante Samuel Jr. got back on track. He made some great plays. There was that throw right out the gate where Tyreek Hill was kind of running that deep, almost wheel out of motion, and the backup safety broke it up. Like, I'm trying to think of other ones.
Every couple sequences, it was all just like, man, that was a nice breakup. Man, that was a nice breakup. And it happened all game.
There, guys, look at the separation numbers from Next Gen Stats. I tweeted it at halftime, and I'm sure it didn't get much better. There was no separation. And maybe they've gotten predictable at this point. And, maybe Tua needs to hit some difficult throws in tight windows. But a bunch of credit is Staley and the Chargers defense, and all these defensive backs deserve a bunch of credit. They deserve a bunch of credit. So,
well, it's like, okay, mix things up. I wonder how the Dolphins defense is maybe a little bit more one-dimensional than it seems. And that's kind of been the opposite of the narrative going around. But it's like, okay, you look at what they're really good at. If you don't look at Tua as like an MVP candidate, and you look at him as like a guy who does some things well but is limited, and then you look at the offensive line, and the run game has really not been that great for them, they're not like working with some like beautiful, perfect offense. And it's easy to forget that because the first thing you look at is the skill positions, which they're real. Obviously they have amazing receivers, and Tyreek is, trying to break 2,000 yards and all that. But even Tyreek, who feels unguardable, really isn't. And even though he did get one, that alone is not enough.
And yes, and this was the first game where it really felt like that predicted, like they were truly one-dimensional, and that one thing, because they're so good at that one thing was just not working for them. Because even in the 49ers game, like I just mentioned, there were guys like that game was there to be won for the 49ers despite the final score, or for the Dolphins despite the final score. That game was there to be won. This was really the first time where it was like, whoa, this was not a very good defense, and you looked predictable. So they got to mix it up. They got to run the football more. They got to do something, I don't know, to like make them respect something else about your game. Because right now, when you look at the heat map, it's this big blazing red spot at like the 10 to 15 yard range in the middle of the field.
You have to think that like as a secondary, the big fear of like why you wouldn't want to get up and jam Tyreek and Waddle and Sherfield is like, well, shit, these guys are so fast. If we fuck up, they're just going to run right by us. We're going to give up too much space. But I think the Chargers were okay with like, you know what, Samuel, get in his grill. If you give up a foot or two, that's fine. We're going to bring a safety down. We know they're going to have an in-breaking route. We know it's going to be in-breaking, right? They want to attack that middle of the field. We're just going to bring a safety down to take that away.
Well, I think for me, the big question is, okay, so we've just laid out what happened, right? They don't respect the run. They drop everybody back. They get real physical. To beat that, you need to be able to run. Now, the Dolphins are not a good running team, but the question is, okay, if defenses are now going to all make the adjustment, you would assume from here on out, considering that they're playing pretty good defenses and considering that, it's like Bill Belichick and the Jets and the Bills. Yeah. And you figure everyone watched this game and they're going to be like, okay, that's what to do. Are the Dolphins, is it that the Dolphins have not really attacked through the ground enough when defenses are focused so much on getting back and not respecting the run? Or is it that even when these defenses don't respect the run, they still can't do it effectively enough to actually counter it? So can they counter that much of teams, saying, forget the run, I don't care, or can they not?
Yeah,
that's what we're about to find out. Yeah. I mean, they don't really have the personnel that makes you think this would be an amazing running team outside of Armstead. So we will see. We will see.
They have a lot of guys that they could give it to. Like, I would like to see how they involve like Waddle and Tyreek along. I don't know how
that stuff is cool.
You can't build the ship
I don't know
out
if
of it.
it really.
Yeah.
If it's going to be like, well, we're going to just give it to Tyreek. I mean, they could work some of that in, but ultimately, you need to be able to just run in between the tackles at some point.
Yes.
To some extent. And this is McDaniels, he's a run game coordinator. So maybe that is the solution is just do that stuff enough to make you don't have to run it 25 times a game or 30 times a game, but
keep
enough to get defenses
honest.
out of these. Yeah. Enough to get them honest.
Yeah. Yes, I do. They don't really have the personnel, but they do have McDaniels, and that definitely could be good enough. I think that we'll start to see that in future games. I think that the reason they kind of stuck with it in this game is because I think they looked at the 49ers game and they said it was there. There's no reason to change what we're doing just because we missed some throws. We're going to stick to our guns. I think this game might be the one where it's like, okay, now let's see if we can maybe change our approach going forward. And it definitely wouldn't surprise me if they're more run heavy going forward. I think this was kind of the wake up call, and it could work. It could work. It could not. It could work. It's kind of all.
Well, I mean, they're going to
have
to. They're going to have to try something. Matt, you mentioned before this episode, the Dolphins aren't locked into making the playoffs at this point. They're not. They have a really tough last 4 stretch of games. They play the Bills, Packers, Jets, and Patriots. There's no guarantee that they make the playoffs at this point.
They have to win that Jets game.
Yeah.
They absolutely must win that Jets game because they would not have the tiebreaker over them or the Chargers, and that's the real big competition. I don't know. It's tough because it's not like they've got some easy defense to do it against. And maybe that's almost come back to bite them. Is like they go on this stretch of playing like all these terrible defenses and they don't get really challenged by anybody who can actually counter them with any meaning because they just don't have the personnel to do it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Chargers offense though. Let's talk about Justin Herbert here for a minute.
Our guy.
What a masterclass game, man. That was, I think that's just everything that you see about Justin Herbert and everything that I like about him was on display tonight. And everything that you don't like about this offense was on display tonight as well. But he overcame all of it.
Yeah.
How many times tonight was it like 3rd and 2 and they threw it short of the sticks? You have, and I get it. They're dealing with some challenges. Their wide receivers aren't really good at creating separation versus man. Like Mike Williams can dunk on some folks in man coverage, and we saw him do it tonight. But
you can't just throw it up every single play to him.
Like overall, it might be easier to kind of manufacture some looks instead of trying to get people to get open. I get that, but at the same time, it's like Justin Herbert is a freak of nature, right? The guy has identical combine testing to Josh Allen, and I think that he's plays a little bit better in structure, which can be his downfall sometimes. When the structure is bad, he trusts it a little bit too much. But like, let him have the option to scramble. Let him have the option to make a tight window throw. Don't give it to Keenan Allen, who runs a 5.0 second 40 at this point in his career, and try to get him to make guys miss in space. Or,
Lord.
Carter, who is 5'8", and like when he gets touched, he goes down. Like
that guy's out of totally nowhere. Who is this? I remember he was a part of the team part of the stuff from day one.
Or Gerald Everett, who looks like he's running in quicksand, and it's like, how many screens to him did we see tonight? It's like, I get that there's limitations, but honestly, I would rather take my chance on Keenan Allen getting open somehow than the screen to him or a screen to Gerald Everett. So it's frustrating how much both the coaching staff and the talent forces Herbert to check it down, because you see him. I mean, a mortal quarterback could have gotten sacked 10 times tonight, I think.
Yeah, and that I thought was the most impressive thing. You said it, I think, but it's really noticeable where it's like, it's almost like a horror movie. And you're like, Herbert, look out behind you, Herbert, no! But then he knows most of the time. Like he's like,
I thought he was going to get strip sacked at one point tonight. Early on,
at one point, there are so many times where he's like sitting there,
pulled the ball, and I was like, no, that's it. It's over.
He looks so nonchalant. He's just like standing there as calm as can be. His tackles are getting torched. They're like coming in from behind him, and he's just like standing there with like the ball, just like, just kind of hanging out, whatever. And you're like, oh my God. And then he just moves out of the way. It happens so much.
Yeah.
And it happens every game. This is the thing about Herbert. People do not watch the Chargers haven't been on primetime much outside of the Chiefs games, and Herbert has played very well in those games, and both times they have been like right there about to beat the Chiefs, and then
he literally had a game-winning drive in the last one and it didn't matter.
Right, something happens, like Gerald Everett gets too tired to run the route, and then there's a miscommunication and he throws a pick six, or like the defense allows Mahomes to have a game-winning drive after Herbert threw one of the best throws of the years to Keenan Allen. Like, some bullshit happens in those games, but that's like what we've seen the Chargers in primetime. Trust me, they lost to the Raiders last week. Herbert looked like this. Herbert looks like this every week since he was a rookie. When he ran rookie, the moment he stepped onto the field against, I think, who was it? Was it the Chiefs? The first game they played? It's been like this. I don't know. I can't remember either. But he had the worst offensive line in football when he was a rookie. They were completely porous. And he stepped in and won Rookie of the Year, looked fine. Like, from the moment he stepped onto the field, his pocket presence has been like this. He has the 15th lowest sack rate of all time. He has the 6th lowest interception rate of all time. The guy just does not have, there are no negative plays in his game. They're absent. He doesn't make bad mistakes. There might be plays where, there's an incompletion or an inaccurate ball, but like this notion that he makes, Tua, he may have all the natural talent and he can make all these crazy throws, but Tua, that's the guy who, is smarter. It's like, and better pocket presence. It's like, no, that is not true. He just has Tyreek Hill. He has Tyreek Hill. He has Josh McDaniels, who we've criticized a bit tonight, but like overall has done a very good job this season. Like Herbert is everything. He's good at all the things that Tua is good at, while also being an A+ athlete.
Yeah.
That's the take. And it showed tonight.
I'm really curious as to like if there is anyone out there that is still trying to say that Tua is better than Herbert. Like, what does he do? Like, nothing. Literally.
I don't know. I think this is pretty damning. I mean, I don't want to take too much off of one game, but it's like
it's so
it's
clear.
Not the bad performance by Tua, but you see what Herbert can do, and you see what Tua can do, and
it's like there's a difference. It's not even close. It's not even close. Not even up for discussion. Like there is an A tier. There is like an S+ tier of quarterbacks, and they are Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and then I guess you could throw like Lamar in that mix as well.
Burrow.
Or maybe Burrow. Yeah. But
no,
like
Burrow.
Burrow had a great game.
My Burrow hating days
I was trying to not talk about the Browns today because they got fucking the score was not that crazy. They got shredded in every respect. Like they did not look like they belonged on the same field. All right.
I was trying not to talk about them. No one made you, man.
We were talking about the Bengals, man, not the Browns. This is Joe Burrow. This is not the Browns at all.
Anyway,
I don't know if you guys have anything more to say about the game. I am really starting to feel like the Bengals can make it back to the Super Bowl. I really, really think it's a possibility, man.
I think it is too. I still think like that cornerback spot that number one corner, they're missing that. And they're also not that good at getting pressure with just four. Yeah. As good as Trey Hendrickson is, they don't really have
Hendrickson was hurt today. He like broke his wrist or something. But he like played through the game. It was weird. So I don't know. It's not good. I don't know if he'll put a brace on and keep playing, or if he'll be out for a little bit until the playoffs.
They've got a real shot to do it regardless.
Yeah,
they've got a real shot to do it for sure. There are some holes in the team, but like the Bills struggled today on offense. Like again, It's just Allen and Diggs over there. Like Gabe Davis didn't make a play all day. Their rushing attack wasn't really dangerous. I get that it's against a good defense. Mahomes threw 3 picks today. I'll say this: we talked earlier about Hurts or Mahomes being the MVP or whatever, and the 3 picks today, and earlier in this podcast, which happened earlier in the day before the Chiefs
came.
Right, I said, I don't really care if you throw picks. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I looked it up. That's the saying.
I looked it up when we were talking about it.
There's more than one way to skin the cat. You can do it the bombs away way, throw 3 picks and put up, 35 points on a team. I don't care as long as you're putting up the 35 points on a team.
Right.
The Chiefs scored more points against the Broncos defense than any other team this year, but Mahomes probably went down in the MVP rankings because of the picks. And to me, he kind of stayed right where he was, and that's at number one. I'll say that about another game that happened today.
I mean, that's fair. He did keep an inferior opponent in the game, though. You know, Jalen Hurts didn't do that. That's all. No.
You're right. You're right. But the Chiefs' offense is still the best in the league, and I still think Mahomes is more valuable. But Hurts is really good. I don't want to. I feel like
do you think Burrow
has
any merit in the MVP conversation at this point?
I think it's gonna be hard for him to get back into it. No, it's like
it was a bit
Mahomes already
start.
has such a cutout path, and then it's like the argument, like what would Burrow's numbers have to look like for him to be above Hurts? They'd have to be really great, and then it's like where you're like, well, Hurts is on a way better team, but then he'd also have the best record. And it's like, well, you have Chase and T. Higgins and Boyd. So it's not like you're on some bum squad. So it's a little bit tough to work your way back up into that.
I think this is where I'm at. I think that all of these, I'm almost just going to say whoever has the best offense, Hurts, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, whoever, may the best offense win. Whoever's offense is the best at the end, I'll give the quarterback. I'll say the quarterback of that offense is the most valuable player in the league. That's my criteria that I've got in my head right now. It's the Chiefs. If the Bengals win all these games at the end and they already beat the Chiefs, I think they play the Bills. If they, continue to tear teams apart and they have the best offense towards the end, like, sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right now the Chiefs, it's the Chiefs, Eagles, Bills. Those are like the three teams at the top in EPA and success rate, but they're like neck and neck. Like it's like,
and the Bengals aren't too far behind, aren't
they? They're not too far behind. They're not too far, but they're like there's a clear gap. It's not a massive gap, but it's clear enough. And then the next drop off would be like from them to the Dolphins. But it was like if there's like S tier, and then the Bengals are in a tier, and then it's like Dolphins and everyone else. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a crazy run in the playoffs. Like the Bengals are really, really good, Matt. I mean, you have a really good point that like they could really get back to the Super Bowl, especially like we've seen the Bills struggle. We've seen we already know they can beat the Chiefs. I think they can beat the Dolphins.
Yeah,
they can beat anybody. They can absolutely beat anybody. They can beat anybody. Point blank. We can list all the great teams in the league. The Bengals can beat all of them. Yeah, they can. Will they? Who knows? But they can.
Will they? We'll see. And the real question is, can they beat the Philadelphia Eagles? That's the real question.
That is a good question. One more thing I want to talk about tonight. Brock Purdy put up.
Oh God!
How many points against the Buccaneers?
35.
A billion.
35. Any
most
thoughts?
Interesting quarterback room in the world.
Oh my God! Yeah,
they're gonna have a decision to make. It's gonna be so.
This is
weird.
real life start bench cut. This is just real life start. It's those three options, or it's like start bench trade or something like that. Like it is the real life. There's three. They're all like intriguing options. Real life start bench trade.
Can we get our social team to like get a graphic of that up?
It's just some made up Twitter scenario that the 49ers GM is actually going to have to deal with this year. So I ask you guys, start bench trade.
I think it's really simple,
Lance
honestly.
Purdy.
So I think that the good thing is that you don't have to make this decision right now.
Yeah.
You don't. Mm-hmm. So what you do is, okay, well, Brock Purdy is playing the rest of the season. You would hope, unless there's another injury, in which case it's McCaffrey in at quarterback for whatever the hell they're going to do.
Shanahan himself is going to be like, no one can write this offense but me.
Fine, I'll do it myself.
But if Purdy comes in and he looks like he's doing what Garoppolo is doing, or even at a better rate, then I don't know if there's that much of a question, because Garoppolo, I think there's a real chance he's going to command some serious money. I'm not saying $40 million a year, but like the Jets are going to really want Garoppolo. A team like the Panthers could really want Garoppolo. A handful of other teams, it's like, this is a serviceable starter that can get us through, blah, blah, blah. Right. We may really want that. Who knows? Tampa could possibly try to go get him if they lose their guy, or he'd be a bridge quarterback for anybody. So you can see that average value number. I think he could get up to $20 million. I think that is totally a possibility per year for Garoppolo and maybe higher. Who knows? So if your choice is between Brock Purdy and $20 million extra or Jimmy Garoppolo, where does Purdy need to be? Not that like he just needs to be pretty close. And that's the move. As far as Trey Lance goes, it's hard, man. You're probably still going to have him on the team. You probably still have to roll with him. I say you do. Yeah. Unless Purdy goes and wins the Super Bowl Tom Brady style. I'd say next year, barring Purdy just like absolute, like literally looks like a franchise quarterback, start Lance, Purdy in the wings, let Garoppolo walk.
I think that's easy as well. Like as much as we talk about it, like trade Jimmy G. Brock Purdy today threw more deep passes outside the numbers than Jimmy G has in the last 3 years. All right. The guy has a little bit more juice than Jimmy G does and a little bit more a big playability. That's for sure. So if he can if he's not turning the ball over all the time and could just execute the offense with the big playability, like, yeah, let's keep Purdy and let's have him and Lance compete for the job in training camp. And then Jimmy G, we get assets for him in the trade. Bang. I think that's his pretty good situation to be in, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think people ask, is he going to be the franchise? Is he going to, what are they going to do with him? It's been 2 games. He's Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. I think that he's got main character energy. All right. The guy is Mr. Relevant. But I think that like, there is no reason why him and Lance can't just compete in training camp next year, even if he looks this great the rest of the way, like and made the best man win. Right. And then if Lance is the backup, I'm sure that he would probably command a first round pick, even if he we'll talk. Maybe that's a conversation for another time.
That's an off-season conversation. It'll be weird for sure if Lance doesn't win the job where they move, if they move him.
If Lance loses the job, that would scare you. If there's a difference, if Purdy wins the Super Bowl and he plays, if he plays amazing, and it's like we cannot bench this guy, he played too good, and Lance we can't just keep him. We have to get value for him. Then I would consider trading for him.
Nick Foles won a Super Bowl.
This would be different because Foles would have gone through not working out as a franchise quarterback and then went on 1 3-game run. If Purdy comes in and is immediately awesome, he wins a Super Bowl. Okay, like you have to roll with him. Fair enough. If they go into training camp and they don't know which one they're going to start and it's a training camp battle and Lance loses, that's a red flag. Yeah. That would scare you if you were trying to trade for him. And then also, are you going to bring him in and start him after training camp?
Right.
So it's a tough one.
It is a tough one. But
I think I think it's start Lance, bench Purdy, trade Garoppolo. Yeah. I think is currently what I'm thinking right now, and I think that's I think any other answer would be slightly weird.
Would you try to go for the franchise tag Garoppolo, move him?
Sure.
I think you could pull it off. Honestly, I don't know if I don't know.
Pull it off.
It might work.
We've talked about this a million times. The quarterback carousel. There's like 3 first-round caliber, maybe 4 if you like Richardson, and there's like 7 teams that are going to need a quarterback. Jimmy G will have a market. So yeah. I don't have too much else to say about today.
No, great Sunday night game, absolute blast.
Oh, I'm so relieved, guys.
Dude, I know. I was.
I'm so relieved. Look, I know ball, at least in this situation. I know what I saw. I know what I saw with Herbert. I know what I see with Tua.
Bro, like Herbert
I know
is
how
that
good both of those players.
Guy.
I know how good Justin Herbert is. I knew it. And if he would have played bad tonight, it would have been weird. It legitimately just would have been weird. And I would have tried to convince people like, yo, this is not how he normally plays. This is an off game. Even in games that he lost and you didn't see, he was doing some good things. And if it was just some weird game, it would have been over. Dialogue would have been cooked forever. But luckily, we now get to just make normal takes again, where Tua is like capable of playing good football, but is not maybe in that super top tier of quarterback. And Herbert is. That's the way it should be. And I'm just so relieved that
we're not in the parallel universe where
normal football conversations and TUAnon is sending me shit saying they're going to kill my family. So that's
oh my God.
Telling me that if I was dead, no one would ever miss me. I'm just glad I'm not. I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Just saying, Herbert's deep ball is better, please.
But yeah, I don't have anything else. I think that pretty much wraps things up. Make sure you tune in to our Tuesday live. We'll discuss, the Monday night game. Anything we didn't talk about here, we can discuss more. Maybe the potential move of where Garoppolo could land or stuff like that. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Whew. Another wonderful day of football. And as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the flippity flop.